Hi and welcome. I'm Laura Lee. This show is dedicated to those central mysteries of life. Who are we? Where do we come from? Where are we going? That's the adventure of life, and it's a big, fascinating universe out there. That's why we call this show Conversation for Exploration. The world of herbs contain as many medicinal as culinary treasures, and some potent ones at that, as you know. And after all, herbs were the first medicine and the only medicine for most of human history. Johnathan Treasure, originally from Cambridge, England, and now living in Ashland, Oregon, a medical herbalist, says that there are some prevalent and even dangerous, and certainly some annoying myths out there in both the mainstream and alternative views on herbs. He's here to dispel them. Hello, Johnathan, and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So I understand that your Cambridge education began in medicine, but then you made the shift to botanicals. What led to your interest in this whole world?
I think I came full circle, really. I was actually always interested in plants, and the time I was applying for university, molecular biology was an exploding subject and very fascinating. I applied to do biochemistry, and when I got to university, it was suggested that medicine actually kept a lot of your options open, and so I started studying medicine. However, the medical model became one that I was increasingly disenchanted with throughout my education, and I actually abandoned the whole mainstream medical track fairly early on.
What disenchanted you about the medical model?
Well, what disenchanted me was really the fact that standard practice medicine was failing to address what I saw as the real issues of healthcare and wellness that were all around me, and increasingly looked like more of part of the problem than part of the solution.
And so natural medicine's offered a solution.
Well, it was closing the loop for me. I mean, plant medicine is natural medicine, that's for sure. Botanicals are natural agents. That doesn't mean natural equals safe. But I began to explore plant medicine and basically went back to college in the UK to retrain as a medical herbalist, which is something that you cannot do actually in the United States.
What is the training as a medical herbalist? How to administer herbs as medicine in place of a doctor, alongside a nutritionist?
In the UK, the training is basically configured like a complementary and alternative licensed modality, so that you learn basic medical preclinical subjects, but you are prescribing the herbs instead of pharmaceuticals to treat people that are in front of you.
And let's not forget those pharmaceuticals are isolates of many herbs, many of them. Distillations of herbs, right? But go ahead.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the majority of pharmaceutical medicines were originally derived from herbs, and a significant number today are still, one way or another, derived from plant medicines. And as you probably know, I mean, plants are continually being screened for new medicines, and particularly for chemotherapy and cancer and so on.
Go to the rainforest, and there are bioprospectors that do just that. Let's talk to the old shamans and see what they know. And
which comes along with its own problems, of course, ethics to do with who's exactly benefiting out of this relationship. So that's another big story. But anyway, yeah, going back to plant medicine. I mean, perhaps that's one of the first myths that we should take on, particularly in the United States, is that natural is the same as safe. Now, on the one hand, I would say that this is a very, very important topic, because standard practice medicine is currently has a very variable and uneven position in relation to herbs. A lot of the time they will say herbs are rubbish, a lot of the time they'll say herbs don't work, and at the same time they will also say they're dangerous, they interact with our drugs, etc., etc., etc. So there's a real question about what is the safety of herbal medicines in general. And the general answer is that they are extraordinarily safe compared to pharmaceutical drugs. The figures alone are devastatingly powerful.
In favor of herbs.
Yeah, in favor of herbs. I mean, we hear, for example, about Carver causing perhaps 1 or 2 liver-related deaths in Germany. This is a relatively new and breaking story. There have been some suggestions that black cohosh may cause liver toxicity, and we start looking at a topic like liver toxicity, for example, and go look at the actual figures, and these are not made up by herbalists. These are FDA, CDC, poisoning center figures, which suggest that acetaminophen that is Tylenol, is the major leading cause of death from fulminant hepatic failure. It causes death from liver failure, and there are it's the leading cause of transplants. So self-poisoning by Tylenol is an absolutely established, incontrovertible cause of death
and yet
in the United
States.
States.
Over-the-counter medicine that you can buy without a prescription.
Exactly.
I thought the FDA was supposed to protect us against that. You bring up some really good points. Herbs are generally safe. Why is that?
we have co-evolved with plants over literally thousands of millennia, and there is a completely intimate relationship metabolically between our own bodies and plants, and indeed which preceded really long preceded agriculture, industry, and all the rest of it. So at a fundamental level, well, an interesting point about the human genome, for example, is that the average flowering plant actually has nearly as many genes as the human being, and if you add in half the earthworm's genome, they're pretty much equivalent. So I guess a plant half eaten by a worm adds up genetically to a human being.
That's so interesting. These are very complex creations, then, you're saying?
Without a shadow of doubt, yeah.
So the FDA jumps all over an herb where 1% of 1% of 1% has a toxic effect, is somebody probably abusing the herb, and yet at the same time it allows these common over-the-counter drugs to be out there that are causing far more toxic effects, and they don't have a problem with that. They sweep that under the rug. This must drive you crazy, this double standard, in effect, here.
It does. I think, to be fair to the FDA, although one doesn't feel like being fair to the FDA, but they're not jumping all over herbs. The only herb that we're looking at the moment that has recently been subject to a ban is ephedra. And ephedra is, unfortunately, a rather complex and special case. Ephedra is a herb that should not be left around on supermarket shelves for general consumer-level self-prescription and consumption. And we had an issue with the comments that the FDA required from practitioners, professional bodies, and scientists, and so on about ephedra, whereby very much one felt like one was going into bat like a lawyer defending Mike Tyson. This is really a difficult spot to defend. However, it remains the case, very interestingly, and this relates to what you brought up right at the beginning about isolated constituents, is that none of the evidence relating to adverse effects about ephedra can be tied to the therapeutic use of ephedra, the herb, used as it is traditionally prescribed, particularly in Chinese medicine. In fact, quite the opposite. And the weight loss market, the weight loss supplement market, which has now taken a serious blow from the FDA, was really largely responsible for the
abuse.
If you like, abuse. Yes, it is abuse.
Of the herb.
Yeah.
Because you pointed out that in Chinese medicine, ephedra was used in a very different way for weight loss. Ancient man didn't have an issue with weight like we do today.
Quite so. Yeah. And it's part of the pill popping culture of we'll take this for that and we'll fix it. So the FDA, however, does not jump all over herbs. However, I think that where I would agree with you completely is that the general notion that the FDA is protecting the public, I think a really large number of criticisms can be made about that general proposition. And herbs are an easy target, and the FDA is quite happy. It's an under-resourced, under-financed organization, and it's very easy for them to start making a fuss about a few supplements. They'll get a lot of publicity. Whereas the idea that they might take on pharmaceutical companies and Tylenol, of course, is a very different poses a very different job for them, and one that they're apparently not prepared to do.
Well, who do they answer to? It seems like they're out protecting big pharmaceutical companies, like so much of our government has want to do. Cocaine and the coca leaf is another demonstration of what happens when you take an herb that's healthful, useful, safe, and then take an isolate, and how it changes it into a whole different animal.
I agree. I think the interesting thing about cocaine and the coca plant is that, like a lot of the more powerful medicinal herbs, they have been concentrated, they have been purified, and actually they are useful drugs. I mean, aside from its recreational use, cocaine remains ophthalmically a useful,
operations and such.
In certain circumstances. Morphine, for example, is an extremely useful painkiller. However, the raw herbal form of these materials has, as you say, been made illegal, which in a way is a kind of, to a herbalist, it's a way of emasculating herbal medicine.
How so?
Well, by taking away from it some of our strongest plant allies are essentially not legal to be used in this country.
The coca leaf would be very helpful, right? Chew it, and no thirst, no hunger, a lot of energy.
In the right circumstances, you could argue that, certainly. Yeah.
Helps you with those high altitudes.
Yeah.
And interesting, the early Egyptians were importing coca leaves, goes the theory.
I didn't know that.
Because they found evidence of coca isolates in the hair of some of the Egyptian mummies, that and tobacco. So what are these New World plants doing in Egyptian mummies' remains? Well, I think there was a big trade going back and forth, that those oceans were easy to navigate, and they certainly
You're right,
had the
that
boats to do it.
a lot of traces of medicinal plants have been found in literally almost prehistoric situations archaeologically, which simply confirms the fact that herbs, as you said right at the beginning, herbs have been are the oldest known medicine, and
And a precious
also a
trade
sacred
commodity.
and a sacred too.